Hey you guys, this is Josh
And Carolyn.
with Homesteading Family, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pantry Chat Food for Thought.
This week, we're going to be talking about a common issue out in the garden in the middle of the summer, which is insect pressure, pest pressure in the summer garden.
Almost a challenge always, those are not the right words, but a challenge all the time for just about everybody at some point in the year.
Definitely. So we're going to be talking about the easy kind of passive ways to deal with them, somewhat
Natural,
mostly
definitely natural,
natural.
organic ways. And that's I know that's a struggle for a lot of you out there. So
It is. So we'll be diving into that in just a minute. But first, some chit-chat.
yeah.
What is...
You want-
You go first. So what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Wow. Well, we're kind of in that summer groove, I think, and animals are moving out around the pasture, doing well. Garden is finally coming along. It always feels slow here in North Idaho, but I was out there this morning. I'm not there as much because Rachel is managing this year.
I know.
She's doing a great job, which is good because I got a lot to do, but was in there this morning and was really pleased with everything, though it's just slow. And yeah, we're kind of just in a nice holding pattern, moving animals through pasture. Of course, not a lot of projects this year. And next major event is chicken processing this Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll be processing our first round of chickens.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Good.
So I think that's kind of it. Kind of in flow. What about you? What's going on with you?
Yeah, we're already hitting the beginning parts of harvesting and doing stuff in the kitchen garden out there. So we had a nice batch of Napa cabbage come in. So we made quite a bit of fermented kimchi to put up for summer and winter eating. I really like it. I like kimchi. I don't know that it's the household favorite. I think people like sauerkraut more than kimchi, but
Definitely.
but I like it. So
Good.
I like getting the diversity of flavors, and definitely the chili paste in there adds all sorts of other really good benefits. So so we've done that. We're kind of through the garlic scape here. We love garlic scapes. Love, love, love them. We just ate them fresh. We did not preserve any of them. They're just so good. We harvested shallots
Yep,
the other
that's
day.
right. The shallots came in.
So those are curing now.
We got a longer season on asparagus than seems normal. I feel like the asparagus went longer this year, produced longer.
Interesting. I think it's just getting more mature, which gives us those thicker stalks, which means we can pick longer. So just the benefit of actually staying in one place long enough to have a mature asparagus bed. So which has
move it.
been a challenge. Well, we could move the bed, but historically we've put in asparagus beds, and then just as they're starting to get harvestable, we're moving and going to a different location. So it's nice to feel a little rooted and planted. But now we're into berry season. So we just harvested all the red currants, and we're making that into red currant syrup. That's one of our favorites around the house to do with red currants. Oh, so good. We make a French toast casserole, and everybody loves that red currant syrup over that French toast casserole. So yummy. We're bringing in raspberries at this point. So we've gotten a couple of gallons of raspberries. The first ones went right into the freeze dryer because those are just amazing to have all winter.
Actually, they went right into our mouths, then they went into the freeze dryer.
Right, yeah. We definitely enjoyed the first small pickings first and just enjoyed eating them.
Strawberries too, yeah.
Yeah,
So
we had
strawberries coming in. We don't have a huge patch.
We just ate.
So, yeah. We don't really have a big enough patch. Yeah, I don't have a spot yet to expand into, but
not when they're as good as they are fresh, and there's many of us who love strawberries.
And these came from a neighbor that's had these strawberries going for decades. I don't know. I want to say 30, 40 years.
30, 40 years.
Yeah.
She thinned out her bed and gave us a ton of her strawberry starts. And so this is the first year that they just are really going to town.
Yeah.
They're very, very happy. So, and then huckleberries. we're starting to pick forage huckleberries here. And so tomorrow we'll be doing huckleberry jam. So it's kind of like here, we're just rolling through it, but it's amazing getting more young adults in the house. It's like, oh, I'll make the jam today. You know, it's like the tasks just spread out really nicely. So it's feeling a little relaxed, even for being kind of the beginnings of harvest. So it's good. It's good. It's fun.
Oh, good.
It's enjoyable. It's been a nice warm summer so far, but punctuated with nice rainstorms. And so I feel like it's been really nice.
Which is good because the summer didn't start that way. It started a little warm and dry.
It's
starting to get a little like,
hot.
This isn't going to be good for fire or pasture or anything else. And now we're getting these nicely sprinkled in rains.
Yeah. Really good. So anyways, it looks like it's going to be a great harvest year for a lot of things.
Yep. Fruit trees. Most of our fruit trees are younger, but some of them have fruit first year. So that's exciting. And the other trees are doing much better than they have the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Coming
good.
back after that freeze.
Good. Exciting stuff.
Good stuff.
All right. Just keep up with the goodness. Keep up with the harvest.
You betcha.
That's the goal. So, all right. Well, before we move on, we need to say thank you for today's sponsor of the Pantry Chat, which is Azure Standard. Azure is a company that we have personally relied on for years for filling up any bulk storage in our pantry or for getting anything that we're not growing or able to source locally ourselves.
Yeah, they're our first go-to for good quality food that we can't produce ourselves.
Definitely.
Or we need to fill a gap or an extra. And they've been very good to us over the years.
If you're not familiar with Azure Standard, one of the really cool thing about them is they're kind of a buying co-op, which means that you place your order and it comes in a truck right to your local pickup, which means that you're not really paying for shipping, which is great for those giant bulk things that you're getting, 50-pound bags of wheat or oats or sugar or any of those things. So it can be a great way to go.
Really is. And they've got a discount for you if it's your first order from them for all of our listeners. And it is 15% off your first order. Use coupon code Homesteading Family 15.
There you go.
Homesteading Family 15 for 15% off your first order or more. And thank you, Azure.
For first order of $100 or more.
First order for $100 of $100 or more.
Yeah. So go on over to azurestandard.com. Look, once you get there, they'll walk you all through it once you're on their website. Look for your local drop point and then get your order placed. We think that you'll really appreciate what they have to offer.
If you don't have a drop point, rally a few neighbors and create one. You guys will be thankful for it.
Yeah. It's a good way to go.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Questions of the day.
All right.
This one's from Joanna Damian. And she says, I live in the city and I'm wondering if this magazine, referring to the Homestead Kitchen magazine, is helpful for urban homesteading.
Ooh, it is helpful for anyone who has a kitchen and wants to live a little bit more naturally and sustainably. So if you have a kitchen, you can definitely homestead out of your kitchen and learn a lot of skills. And so everything in the magazine is geared. Well, we do talk about some gardening and some, other things that would happen, chicken keeping, poultry keeping. A lot of what's in the magazine is geared towards what you can do right out of your kitchen, whether you're growing your own food or not. Focused on seasonal eating, making the most out of your local farmers markets if you don't have your own gardens, or local producers. Preserving that food. Some herbal skills are in there, all sorts of inspiration. There's even kid crafts and different things like that happening. So
it's durable. It's made to be in the kitchen, literally, like to use in the kitchen.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, Carol and our team have done a great job making a very functional magazine. It's beautiful. It's super pretty. It's full of skills, but it's also made to be able to have it alongside you so that you can learn, be inspired while you're doing stuff in the kitchen and beyond.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
you
check it out.
Yeah. It will work. You'll enjoy it, even if you're
Yep.
in the city. Okay, a question for you comes from Simple Living 5533 on your video multi-species rotational grazing. What program do you use to keep track of financials and animal husbandry?
All right, good question. We don't do a ton of selling, and so while I've tracked personally financials over the years, we don't have a vigorous, like, we're not tracking every animal, every single thing. We kind of know how things work for our homestead. That said, we have raised some chickens for sale. We do plan to do things in the future, and we are entrepreneurs. So what we do right now is pen, paper, and Excel. Really, that's for the level we're at. That works great. If we were going to start to develop something out more, I would definitely go find a financial app that was geared toward animal husbandry. And so I did a little research. I have not used this, but what really stands out is an application called Farm Bright for record keeping for animals, financials, and kind of everything right in there. So that's just a suggestion. Have not used it. We'll probably get to that point if some of the kids want to run with it a little bit. And that's what I would do is go from that kind of Excel pen and paper onto something like Farm Bright. There's lots of options out there. I just did a little research for you, and that's the one that kind of rose to the top in my mind without testing it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. Good stuff. Glad you're thinking that way. That is so, so important. And it's very helpful for the homestead too. We've just had years of doing that. And so we kind of know how things work. So we're not, but we've had moments where we're really tracking it to see, does this work in the way we think it is? And so it is a really good idea for all homesteaders, at least at certain points in time, to track your financials and how are they really panning out for you. So love that question, and just love to encourage everybody to do that, but you don't need a big software for the homestead to do that.
I do want to caution you though, when you start looking at it, because it can be really easy if you start like, how much did that tomato actually cost us to grow? Or that chicken, or all of those things. It's a really good exercise to do, and it's really important, but you have to be cognizant to compare it to something of equal value in the store. You can't compare the cost of your homegrown, lovingly cared for tomato or chicken or whatever that is to the cheapest thing you can find in Walmart.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to work. I can tell you right now, yours is going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
Most of the time, yours is going to be more expensive. But if you compare it to what it would cost to actually replace that tomato, that's where you start seeing the value. And let's be real, there's a lot of nutrition and things that you're getting built in that is not there in that cheap version that you're getting from the grocery store.
Well, and it isn't always there, even in the better version you're getting from the grocery store, but that is a good base point. But remember, there is value in what you are producing is probably better than anything you can buy. So you kind of got to include that in your thinking, as well as food security and a lot of other things that are hard to put a value on. So it is a good point.
Right.
But it is good to know what are things costing you? What is it costing you to? Because and I'm just going to run with this for a second because it's actually a really valuable conversation. We can't all do everything. And so something that cost analysis can do is can say what efforts, like if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're trying to do all these things on a homestead, you can do some cost analysis and include your labor in that and go, actually, we're really good at this. We're doing really well. We love it. Let's do this, and let's take this component out and we'll buy it instead. That is a very valuable process for us homesteaders that want to raise all of our food and go to burnout and struggle. That's where really doing that, we call it an audit, right? And you can figure out, one of the things I love that you do is in the vegetables, and is it, if we're struggling too hard to grow it here and working too hard, and by the time you process it and everything, you go, this thing is just better to buy in bulk.
And I have a personal rule that if I have to buy the produce because I didn't grow it, or I can't get it on some sort of a really good discount, but I have to go to, let's say, the farm stand and buy the produce and then preserve it, that usually I can get a comparable quality, organic, already preserved for cheaper than I could actually buy the produce for And that's not even including my labor. So usually when I have to do that, I say, I'm going to buy it already preserved. I'm going to go to Azure Standard or somewhere like that and get the canned corn or the frozen corn that's already been done for me, because it's not worth adding that labor.
Well, and tomatoes would be a great example. To grow the amount of tomatoes that we need, or, that we would like to preserve. We don't need tomatoes. I mean, that's arguable probably, but we would have to invest in a serious greenhouse in our region with temperature controls and air controls and everything else to grow enough. And so we grow enough to enjoy fresh, ripen some on the shelf going into fall. Yeah. And so those are good reasons for tracking financial data, and then buy the rest is what I'm saying, right? But to get to that is this idea that Simple Living brought up about financials. And so point being, you don't need to just do this if you're in business. I kind of started out, well, we're not really in business. Definitely if you're going into business, you need to do that, but there's a lot of value on the homestead as well to helping you pick and choose where you put your energy and your effort.
Yeah. It's a good thought.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
So
let's kick those pests off the property and out.
You have just worked hard all spring. You started your seeds indoors. You spent the winter staring at seed catalogs. You looked through them. You found the varieties that you thought would do really well in your area, the ones that look like they'd be great to eat.
Or better yet, you've been starting to save your own seeds.
Maybe you saved your own. Then you've started your seeds indoors. You've been taking care of them for a long time. Then early summer comes, late spring. Whenever it works for you in your environment, you got those out into the garden that you'd already prepared. So you have worked hard in your garden already. And then one day, somewhere in the middle of summer, you walk out and it's getting destroyed.
In come the marauders.
They're coming and they're eating all of your food, all the insects. Everything has holes. There's little tunnels throughout the middle of your radishes. There are hornworms on your tomatoes that are just decimating the plants. They're going to destroy them before long. Maybe you have cutworms out there that are taking out your little baby plants. Who knows what they are, but they are destroying all your hard work, and it feels really frustrating.
Yeah, you're tempted to go buy some chemical napalm
and dust or something like that,
and wipe them out because it's that frustrating. But we don't want to do that, right? Because we don't want to put that on our plants, and we don't want to put it in our soil.
So before you go to the garden center and start buying all of those things to absolutely destroy the animals or the insects that are coming in and taking over your garden, there's some things you want to think about and that you can try to help control those pests.
And some of these are passive methods that you got to think about before you get there. Actually, a lot of them are. Some of them are things that you can do right now to try.
Yeah.
But a lot of this has to do with building a good foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
go. Soil health is number one. Soil health is key. Healthy plants deter pests.
I can remember years ago watching Paul Gauci talk about this thing. If you guys don't know Paul Gauci, he is the creator of the Back to Eden garden method. And he talked about this moment where he took some, I think it was celery starts, and he transplanted them to a different part of the garden. They ended up not being in the right place. And when he put them in, he noticed that they weren't doing well right off. They kind of got wilty. They didn't like the transplant. And the next morning, there were a ton of pests on them. I think there were slugs in his hay.
Slugs, yeah.
And they were just eating away at this celery. And he thought, oh, they're not going to make it. And the day after that, they were still there eating away. And then the day after that, all of a sudden, the plants looked a little better and there were fewer slugs. And every day there were fewer slugs. Stressed plants in any way, whether that's poor soil health, poor anything, we'll talk about water probably in a minute. Any of that stuff puts out a distress signal to insects that insects receive somehow, however that all happens. And they're kind of like, hey, eat me, I'm dying.
Right.
Clean me up, And so keeping your plants healthy in the first place is just a huge piece of reducing pest populations.
Yep. Quick primer on soil health. Soil needs to have enough carbon in it. It needs to be able to hold air and water. and it needs to be able to, it needs to be alive, needs to have organisms in it, not dead. So there's some of your key pieces to soil.
Can you just explain what carbon in the soil is?
So that's your organic matter. Okay. Carbon is the basis for all life, right? But we don't often think of soil as being alive. And a healthy teaspoon of soil's got, like, I forget the numbers, but it's way more individual living organisms than there are people on the earth,
right,
in a healthy teaspoon of soil. And those organisms are working to provide nutrient to your plants. And so we've got to think more than just water, air, and, macronutrients, NPK, right? And so as a basis, your plants need good soil. Without going deep into soil, you need to provide good soil, good tilth. That means compost, usually, different things like that. That's something you build up over time. And so you do got to understand that if you don't have that right away, plants are likely to struggle. And struggling stress plants, as you said, attract pests. Now, there is a way when you're building soil health to give your plants a boost naturally and organically. You can do that with COF, which is complete organic fertilizer.
Okay.
I think we've done a video on that somewhere.
I think at least we have a recipe. We can put it in the show.
I think we've got a recipe. We'll get it in the show notes. You can research it. It's out there. The other thing you can do is like a compost tea. And you can feed those plants seasonally when they're struggling. And complete organic fertilizer takes a little longer to get to the plants. A tea that you can make, and you can make simple manure teas. There's all kinds of things out there. I was enjoying Dodson, reading his, you just call it
Dodson,
a manure tea.
An older gardener.
Literally taking, 5 gallons, 50 gallons of water, putting manure in a burlap bag, and soaking it in the tea and brewing it like a cup of tea for, I forget what it was. It might've been a week or something.
Something like that.
And then you use that to water your plants. That's going to be a boost of nutrient. And then you can get more complex than that with teas as well, but don't let the complexity that you read about with compost teas get in the way. You got to aerate them. You can get really scientific, and that's fine and good, but you don't have to do that in order to feed your plants real quickly if you need to.
Yeah, I was going to say that, if you go search compost tea online, what you're going to find is something that goes, oh, wow, I need equipment, and I need fish tank pumps, and I need this and that, which is great. You can get very complicated. You can get very technical with it, but you can also get very rustic with this and just get some good manure into a bucket of water and get it brewing.
Well, and I'm going to give a little plug for my friend in a class over at School of Traditional Skills, and that is David the Good. And there's actually a workshop, I think it'll be out by the time this comes out, that he's doing exactly on this DIY, strong, good, healthy soil amendments that get your plants fed right away, in these seasons where they need it while you're building overall soil health.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's just the master at making stuff just simple, doable, without a lot of resources, and busting a lot of these myths, like you got to have this super fancy setup to make a good tea. Right.
We'll get you a link for that in the show notes too, in case you want to know, because that sounds really, really helpful. Okay.
A couple other pieces on soil health.
Yeah.
What that carbon does is it helps the soil hold air and water. Your plants need oxygen and water in the ground. And so that's why you need compost and organic matter. The other side is watering your plants well, right?
Yes.
A plant that is fully watered actually repels a lot of pests, especially your smaller pests, because it floods them out if they're fully hydrated. And so just like we need to be fully hydrated, you need to make sure your plants are fully hydrated, which means watering deeply less often as opposed to watering like every day on the
surface. Yeah.
And so make sure you're checking your soil. Finger test, dig in up to 6 inches deep. You never want to have like wet on top and then dry for a couple of inches. That means you're not watering enough. You're probably watering frequently, but you're not watering enough, right? You'd rather have it dry ½ inch or a little more on the top and then moist down below. And so make sure that your full soil profile stays moist.
So if you're walking out into your garden right now and you're going, oh my goodness, I have a problem, Obviously, when we're talking about soil health, you've given a few keys here for kind of a quicker remediation to start dealing with that, using that compost tea, making sure you've got your watering methods down correctly. But also take a moment and think about next year's garden and what can you do in a broader sense to help bring up your soil level, and how can you plan that in? Because it's so easy to see the problem in the moment and then go, I've got to deal with this pest problem, but not maybe put it on the calendar, put it on the schedule, put it on the to-do list mentally to actually make the big changes that are going to help in the bigger picture.
Right.
And so make sure that you're getting that onto a schedule somewhere or making plans.
Yeah.
So
well said. A soil health strategy.
Soil health strategy.
Yep.
There you go.
Well, let's talk about these ideal conditions. And so this is all kind of dealing with de-stressing the plant, helping the plant be healthy and strong, right? When we're healthy and strong, our bodies resist the things that come along.
Right.
And we might get something, we don't get it as bad. It's not destructive. It doesn't kill us, right? We let our bodies degrade, we get unhealthy. Well, then something can come in and make us really, really sick.
There you go.
So it's the same with the plants. And so ideal conditions.
Yeah. So we really learned this a couple years ago when we were gardening next to a neighbor who'd been gardening for a long time. And he showed us a trick that was kind of surprising. You want to tell the...
Yeah, we even learned something together in this. He was growing his cabbages under the bean tunnels. And that was to provide an ideal location for the cabbage to get through the heat of the summer. He was growing long season storage cabbages. Even up here, it gets a bit hot in the summer. They don't like it. So he was growing it under the bean tunnel to provide some shade and an ideal scenario for that cabbage.
One of the worst pests that we have up here in this area of North Idaho that really plague us are flea beetles.
Yeah. And this is what he didn't realize that we learned as
we all
mudsonger.
this together is that the flea beetles come in around usually mid-July, somewhere right about now. We have canola fields. They grow the rapeseed locally, and it's like everybody knows as soon as they cut that rapeseed, the flea beetles are on the move.
Yeah.
And then they'll hit your cabbages or any of your brassicas and kind of decimate them. What we learned from watching him.
Well, so we, and it was one of our first years up here. So we're talking almost 10 years ago now, and our garden got wiped out, a lot of our stuff, and we didn't know about this yet. So we went next door to our neighbor, and he was actually having some problems, and we were talking about it. But then he showed me his cabbage patch under the bean tunnel. They hadn't been touched. Maybe a few little nibbles, but they hadn't been touched. And even his garden everywhere else had been invaded by these flea beetles. The bean tunnel had given the cabbage protection, just a more diverse environment, shady. There's some theory the flea beetles didn't even see it, however that works, but it protected them by providing an ideal condition for the cabbage.
So one of the things that we've learned is really looking at what the ideal condition is for each thing that really face major pests damage. For us, getting things into the shade for the heat of the summer, for things that we need to avoid those flea beetles on, is one really good way to do that. For some pests, adding mulch underneath them
can help.
does a huge amount of positive work in the garden without you having to do anything, because it doesn't allow the pests to nest and lay eggs the same way.
Yeah.
Another really good trick that we've used is starting to avoid the worst seasons for pests. Now, this doesn't work for every crop,
it's
right?
going to be tough because you got to grow stuff.
You have to grow stuff through hard seasons, but sometimes you do have an option. So we've started doing early broccolis and maybe late broccolis and avoiding the worst part of the mid-season when the pests are out the worst.
Here's just another thought, not quite in our notes that we put together, but if you're in an area that has a very specific pest, you might grow more of things that pest doesn't like and less of the things that it does. That doesn't always suit our grocery store palate well, because we're used to going and buying whatever we want, and we want to be able to replace that in the garden. But we're fighting some elements. So there is some strategy just going, you know what? I'm going to grow more of this, and I'm going to grow less of that. And that leads right into the next topic, which is companion planting. And this is another area where people get really kind of like, oh, it's so complicated, and does this play with that right? And is this look, companion planting is just creating diversity and breaking up pattern. When you've got, if you've got squash beetles, which is we've never had to deal with that real bad, but we hear about it all the time. And I just had a conversation where somebody had a garden that they called it their vining garden. So they had all their cucumbers, all their watermelons, all their winter squash, all their summer squash in one garden, and that was it. Well, that is a blockbuster.
You might as well put out the neon sign that says "Eat here"
right,
to all the insects.
Right. So if you've got these squash beetles, one, intersperse the squash in the middle of other things that breaks up the pattern so they're not as easily identifiable, and maybe grow a little less squash and grow more of other things that you don't have pests for. That's going to start to help you move in the right direction. And that's when we're talking companion planting, that's what's practical. And we'll talk about a couple other things here in a moment with companion planting, but that's one of the practical things is just breaking it up and making it harder for the bugs. I think it's the white cabbage fly moth has to land 4 times in a row on the appropriate cabbage plants to lay eggs. So if you just take your cabbage and start to break it up so that it's very hard for it to do that, you start to break up that cycle.
So instead of having a big patch of cabbage where they're just naturally hopping
right, they can go from one to the other.
You spread it out throughout the garden so that it's a little more spread out. I think you're leaning into something here that has become a real focus of ours all the way around on the homestead, is identifying what does well with, like, what does the best with the least amount of work. It's kind of that 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your produce is coming from something that's taking the least amount of work, right? It's 20% that's taking the most of your work.
Right.
And so like identifying what is that 20%? What is that 20% that's we're laboring over, and it's creating stress, it's creating work. And can we just not do it? Like, can we just opt out of that and instead lean into the things that are like, nothing touches it, it grows well, it doesn't have a problem.
Yeah.
I think in general, that's become more and more our methodology as we homestead and just go, how do we do more with less stress? And it does mean we need to change the diet a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Here's a couple others. Track crops. You can create crops off to the side of your main garden that the pests that you're dealing with really loves. So it's a sacrifice, right? We call it sacrifice crop. And so you can plant that around the edges, just outside, and so that they go to that and less to your other crop. You're generally going to need to use that in combination with some companion planting, confusing the bugs idea, but that can really, really help well.
One of the kind of really well-known trap crops are nasturtiums, especially yellow and orange nasturtiums.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that like your brassicas really like your nasturtiums even better, and they will just go to that. So you can plant a whole bunch of those off to the side. They'll go to those, decimate those first. You can either kill them there because you've all pulled them into one place, or you can just let them decimate that and know that they don't want your kale as much as they want your nasturtiums.
But you do need to think about it. And you hear us referring to flea beetles a lot because that's our main problem. Every region in the country has got different problems. So you got to apply these things, understand your pest, and then how to build these strategies around it, because we don't have a lot of the other problems that you guys do. Increasing predator habitat is another area.
So I was sitting out the other day and enjoying the garden area, and I have my large hops out growing up the side of the house. And we really like the hops. They provide us a lot of shade during the summer. Of course, they actually give us the hops that we use for herbal medicine and different things. But one thing that has really happened is over the last few years, the predators have found them, and they have been coming in and eating the hops, and they will get very eaten. They really can take its toll on it. And so hops being a perennial, sometimes the perennial systems take a little longer to work out because you kind of go through these cycles of like you create food, and then the pests come in, and it takes a while for the predators to realize, oh, now there's a meal here where all the pests are. And so as I was sitting there, I was enjoying all of the songbirds had come in, and they were hopping all through the hops vines, and they were picking off all of the bugs, all of the pests that were eating it. And so, bringing in habitat for those predatory animals is just such an incredible way to go. That means make sure you have trees or bushes or things like that for your birds to be able to come in. Yes, that creates a little different problem if they're eating your fruit or different things, but this diversity is really important. But also make sure you're putting in flowers. Again, we're back to diversity. Putting in flowers and different plants that bring in beneficial insects. Beneficial insects love things like dill. They love things like just your beautiful flowers that you want to grow to have around the garden. So make sure that you're bringing those in.
Yeah, and that ecosystem will grow over time. And, we came into a spot here where they had been applying herbicides and fungicides.
Yes.
And, over the 7 years now, and particularly in the last 2 seasons, we're seeing this radical growth of a variety of birds and predator bugs and just and pollinators in a more full system. And so you got to think out past your garden is what I'm getting to. And as you develop this more broad diversity, inside it, and think of your little homestead as a system, an ecosystem. These things start to work themselves out as you put all these pieces together. Now, I do want to say there's at least one other method that we use, and of course, we grow brassicas really well. They grow really well for us here. But we do have a flea beetle problem.
We have flea beetles. We also do have the white cabbage moths that like to come in.
And we are growing, we're growing for production. And so sometimes the companion planting to some of these things are a little bit challenging to work out. And you can do netting. And that's what we do for some of our core crops. Some of our cabbages, our broccolis, we net them. And you can do that as in season, you start having a problem, you can get those covered up. You can also do that as a strategy. It's a little bit to manage.
As a strategy that you start right at the beginning.
Right. If you've got a problem. And while you're maybe trying to build more diversity and build in these other pieces of an overall healthy system, healthy soil and whatnot, the netting can be great for protection from these bugs, from these pests.
Probably the most relaxed, laid-back way to deal with pests, though, is just to plant some extra and then to eat the things that do really well.
Yeah.
And just not to worry about it too much. If you do that for a couple years, you're really going to get a grasp on what that 80% is that just produces. There's some things that will take the bug damage and the bugs move on and the plants just regrow and keep humming along. And that doesn't really, create a problem with the harvest or reduce the harvest. There's other things that get decimated. And so just planting extra of everything and seeing what happens and just taking a little more relaxed approach, and a learning approach from it is probably the most relaxed way to go about, a low stress way of gardening. And it can be a great way to learn what does well in your area.
Well, and I want to start to wrap up on that thought. That's such a good thought. But one of the things I'm starting to realize is what people identify as pest problems are not always as bad of a problem as you might think. There are problems where a pest comes in and it decimates everything. It kills your plants. Harvest is done, over, gone. That's a real problem. But in our grocery store mentality, we've gotten used to seeing everything picture perfect. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day on a live that I was doing, and they were like in their 4th year. So their garden was humming. They were confident about the soil and they were worried about pests. And so I started asking some questions and I started realizing they had a few things, but they weren't really doing any. Yeah, there were a few holes in there. They had something, and I don't remember what it was in their environment, but it actually wasn't hurting fruit production. It wasn't harming anything. They were just getting a little bit of pressure and they were really worried about it. And I said, well, of course, keep watching if you see that pressure increasing, But sometimes you've got healthy soil, you've got these things, there's still some pests there. They're going to chew off a few leaves. They're going to, you might get a blemished fruit, but does that destroy your harvest?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. And so you can relax is my point. Just because there's some bugs there doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Part of a healthy ecosystem is there are going to be a few bad bugs, right? And I'll refer back to our body. Our body's always got good bacteria and bad bacteria, and there's always some bad stuff there. A healthy system just keeps it in check. It doesn't mean it gets rid of it completely. So take that to the garden and realize if you're doing these things, healthy soil, and you're working towards these things and you see a few pests, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. They're part of the ecosystem. Let them have their share a little bit and just work to keep them in check. That will just de-stress the whole situation a lot.
Absolutely. It's also, take it as a good sign that, if the insects can live on your produce, it means it's not poisoned.
Right.
There's good signs. That's a good thing there.
Yeah.
I always like that when I go to a farmer's market and I see insect holes. I'm like, that's the one you want.
That farmer is honest right there. They're not spraying
They're
anything.
not spraying. So
Absolutely.
All right, you guys. Well, hopefully you can make it through the garden season without losing too much to pests, and you can at least take a deep breath and not be too stressed about it if you do see some stress, pest stress out on the plants.
Absolutely. Great hanging with you, and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.